I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Angela.
We are the Ink Mages. Join us as we discuss all things fantasy, world building, storycraft, myths and legends, and of course, our own imaginative stories. Welcome to the Ink Mages podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today we have a special guest who's going to be in the studio with us. We have author Tricia Copeland, who is a YA fantasy author. She believes in finding magic. She thinks magic infuses every aspect of our lives, whether it is the magic of falling in love, discovering a new passion, a beautiful sunset, or a book that transports us to another world. She's an avid runner and a Georgia native. Tricia now lives with her family and four-legged friends in Colorado. Her most recent series, The Realm Chronicles, finds a Fae princess fighting for her kingdom, people, and very own life, and includes lots of fantastical beings, including kobold, goblins, ogres, dragons, witches, vampires, vampire witch hybrids. Oh my gosh. What is
That's fun.
And coming in her soon-to-be released book 4, Elves and Werewolves. Man, that is just studded with fantastical creatures. I'm so excited to learn more.
Hey, Tricia, welcome
Hello,
to
Tricia.
the podcast. It's so fun to have you on. What a fun, just variety of monsters and magical creatures. We are super nerds when it comes to all of this wonderful fantasy stuff. And I love that in your bio that you talk about the importance of magic and just that being a part of our everyday lives. I definitely think that imagination and magic is a huge part of my life and Stephanie's life and our huge why as to why we write the stories that we do. So love for you to break that down for us a little bit. But first, we are lovers of all of our fantasy nerd facts and all the things that make us love just the genres that we write. What is a great nerd fact that you love to share with us today?
A nerd fact. Well, Stephanie talked a little bit about the kobold, and I stole that from Dungeons and Dragons. I was writing my first fantasy. I guess it wasn't my first fantasy, but I started writing witches and vampires and hadn't branched out from those like main characters. And I wanted something a little bit different. So I was talking to my son I would like to be more of a Dungeons and Dragons aficionado, but I played it some with them, and so I stole that character from their Dungeons and Dragons game, and I tweaked them a little bit, but yeah, so that's my nerd fact.
I actually don't know what a kobold is. Could you elaborate what it is? Is it like a vampire hybrid mix, or what is it?
No, so it's a beast creature, and in my book, they're the enemies of the Fae. So in my book, we have Upper Earth, which is the human realm. We have Middle Earth, which is the Fae realm. And we have Lower Earth, which is basically hell or purgatory, Sheol.
An underworld. Okay.
Right, underworld, maybe you could call it. So the kobolds live in this Lower Earth underworld, but every once in a while they come into Middle Earth and they try to take it over from the Fae. So they're beast-like creatures. They have wings. They have beaks. Or not really beaks, more like a dragon head, but they also have claws and they walk upright like humans, but they can fly as well. So they're kind of a mixture of a dragon bird type thing.
It's scary. I don't want to meet one in a dark cave.
I think I've always wanted to get more into Dungeons & Dragons for that reason. Just all the character lore and the different creatures and magical beings that exist. It's there to inspire the imagination. In fact, the original writers of Dungeons & Dragons, which I thought was amazing, they wanted to give a place for people to be able to use their imagination to create worlds and stories. And I love that. And I love that that's what inspired this creature for your book series.
Yeah, it's really fun. And I've tried to play some, but I'm not that fast. Like it takes me a while to think about what's going to happen, and everybody else has moved on. And I'm like, okay, I don't
know. That would be me. I would be second guessing every decision and just couldn't commit because I'm like, oh no, if I do this, I'm going to die, and there goes my character. I'm out of the game. So tell us more about your writing journey. Where did it all start and begin for you?
So my writing journey started in 2008. So a while back, I just started writing. I had young kids at the time, stay-at-home mom. I was going nuts. So in the evenings after they went to sleep, instead of watching Netflix or just binging whatever or reading, I started writing my own story. And my background is that I suffered from anorexia as a young adult. And I started writing a fictional story about a girl very much like me who experienced anorexia and how that progressed for her, but also her recovery. And it was more about writing something that would give people hope that were in those situations, whether it was depression or anorexia or any type of eating disorder or a mental health challenge. So that was the first series that I published. And my sister-in-law and I had a good friend that was an editor. They read it and they said, "Oh no, you have to publish this. You have to do something." So that series became a 4-book series that I published with my first work.
Was it a fantasy or just more?
No, it's just a contemporary. It's a new adult contemporary. It's a clean contemporary series. More in the lines of women's fiction because it does have romance in it, which most people fall in love and all of these things. But it's more women's fiction, I would categorize. But I was such a lover of fantasy books and fantasy series that as soon as I was done with that, I was ready to jump on. I want to write a vampire story.
How many books have you written? I was on your website and I was like, wow, I was blown away by all of the books that I was seeing.
I kind of got obsessed. I have 21 published books.
Wow. 21. Go you. That's amazing.
That's impressive.
Thank you. Yeah,
are they all published like paperback or some of them just ebook?
So they're all paperbacks. All of them are ebooks. And I have also my Kingdom Journals, which is the Witches Vampires series, as well as the Realm Chronicles are both an audiobook as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's the area that I'm about to explore with my trilogy. Now that it's complete, I'm like, audiobook.
They're super fun. Like it just brings the whole thing to life. And I will listen to my own audiobooks in my car. Like if I'm writing the next one of the series, I just love the voices and I got great narrators that sound so much like the characters. It's a lot of fun.
Did you research like the narrator for your personally or have someone help you with that?
I did. Like I tried to go through the ACX and I kind of failed a couple of times on that. But then I was at a conference, I think it was the one in St. Louis, PinsCon at one point. I don't think they have that anymore, but it was a great conference. And an audiobook narrator was coming up and handing out her cards just to all the authors. And so I met her live in person. And at the time, because I wasn't having success going through ACX and finding someone, she was kind of the first person I glommed onto. And she sent me some samples and she sounded great. And I said, "Okay, you're legit. I'm going with you."
I just recently got to experience just a sample of my book being read, and my books take place in old ancient Wales, and I got an audio recording of someone reading a few of my chapters in a Welsh accent, and I just about lost my mind. It was the coolest thing in the world to get to hear my book read in a Welsh accent, and there is something magical when you get to hear someone tell your story via audiobook. It's magical. I can't wait. I'm very excited for that. So tell us about the Kingdom of Embers and the To Be a Fae Queen series that you've written.
Okay, so the Kingdom of Embers is in the Kingdom Journal series. And this was my first, I wanted to write a vampire book. Unfortunately, ended up a witch series. I'm not sure. Well, I can tell you how that happened. So my books are really character-based. So if I get an idea for a character, then I create a world and a story around that character. So Alina is the star of Kingdom of Embers. She is a vampire witch hybrid, and she has to keep the fact that she's a vampire hidden from everyone. Like she's mainstreamed into human high school, so she has to hide the fact that she's a vampire and a witch.
That's fun.
But the vampires and witches don't allow for vampire witch hybrids to exist. So her mother is the vampire chancellor. Her mother is like the head of all the vampires.
Oh, wow.
So her mother is hiding her witch side. All all the vampires think she's just a vampire. But her mother hides her witch side, and she has to hide her witch side. And obviously there are challenges with this. As a teenager, you don't really want to do that a lot of times, and you want to explore where you came from. And she knows her mom's a vampire, but she doesn't know who her father is. She's never met him, but obviously he's a witch somewhere or some. So she goes on this quest to find her father, but also finds out that she's a special witch, that she was conceived in the year 2000. So she is a witch of the Trinity, which means that if she finds the other two witches of the Trinity, they can break this curse on the witch lines that damns their souls to purgatory. So the witches, as a line, were all damned to purgatory forever when their souls pass on. So she has to find these other two witches, and so each book, while it's called Kingdom Journals, each book is written through the voice of a different witch. So we have Alina's story in Kingdom of Embers, Camille's story in Kingdom of Darkness. The third book kind of got hijacked by Jude, who we're not sure if he's a good character or a bad character, so we'll leave that hanging out there. And then the fourth one is Kingdom of War, the third of the Trinity, who is Hunter. So we have 2 female characters and 2 male characters in the 4-book series.
Wow.
Did I just give you way too much?
No. I was like, whoa. I'm like, there's layers there. And I feel like there's a lot that could be unpacked. Instantly, I'm like, are the vampires and witches at war? Like, is there kingdom politics going on here? Like,
right.
They hate each other and...
It's set in our world, so it's set present day, our world. The humans are not aware of the vampires or witches. So the vampires have put themselves in society as normal humans, quote unquote, at least the ones that are registered and want to live that way. There are vampires that aren't registered and don't live that way. The vampires have done like all the DNA sequencing to find out they're just a different type of human. So they kind of believe that, or at least some of them do. We find out different things about different beliefs later, but yeah, so they're sort of acquiesced into society and they pretend to be humans most of the time. They don't have to drink blood to survive in my book. They do die, but they live like 600 to 800 years. So they live a really long time. They don't get sick. They are fast. They have great, super senses, but they have to eat all natural foods. So yeah, in addition to having to hide being a witch and a vampire, Alina also has to eat like all natural food. She can't have anything processed. So she looks doubly weird at school.
That's kind of a fun additional twist to the storyline of being a vampire, that you have to eat nutritionally.
Right.
Or bad things can happen. That's funny. So you've told us a little bit about the main characters for the Kingdom of Embers series. What are the characters to be a Fae Queen? It's the same world. Can you share a little bit about the characters in that book?
Right. So it is the same world, but as I was talking about before, the Fae live in Middle Earth. So they live below our world, or in the middle of the earth, that mirrors our land for all intents and purposes. So it has all the same landforms, but they have a system of 9 kingdoms, and Titania is the main character. She's a young Fae princess. And in the Fae world, usually the firstborn son would rise to be the next ruler. But all of Titania's brothers were killed. She had 4 older brothers who were killed in a battle with the Copeland, like before the story starts. Then it finds her at age 15, and her father's getting older, and he's ready to pass on his crown, and she wants to be queen. And her father wants her to be queen, but there's a lot of people who don't want her to be queen. So her first challenge is, number 1, should she believe them and not become queen, or should she fight for what is rightfully hers? And so that's the opener. And the Realm Chronicles, which starts with To Be a Fae Queen, is a crossover series to the Kingdom Journals. So in the last book of the Kingdom Journals, we see Titania come to Upper Earth to help the witches. And then later in the series, the 4th book is about to come out, Titania is working with the witches and the vampires. She to combat this one enemy.
Oh, fun.
This is like an overarching
Cool. So how do the Fae in your world, are they based on like the Celtic myths of Fae, or did you kind of do your own little twist on it?
Yeah, I did my own little twist, and I always say, unfortunately, and I shouldn't say that because obviously everybody creates their own characters and what their characters are like, but I didn't do tons of research about Fae before I started writing this. I didn't really realize that like they couldn't touch iron, or that they always had to tell the truth, or, you know, I mean, I knew some of it from Shakespeare, I think, but I didn't really like drill in and make my Fae exactly like the other Fae. So they have wings, number one. Number two, they can tell a lie, although they don't usually tell a lie, but they're not tricky. They don't need to be tricky about it, I guess. Is a lot of the Fae have that kind of running theme in them. And then they live in this Middle Earth where they don't use any technology of the present day. So they don't have electricity. They use candles and fires, and they have like wheels that they use like wood and stone and metal and things like that. So they live very simple lives, whether they're farmers or seamstresses or things like that just support their own society.
I think that's fun how you have kind of these two different worlds in modern day that are so other, but they kind of meld together into your stories, which makes it very unique and kind of fun. I'm curious, do you have any authors that have really inspired your work that you've read a lot of, or is it really just your own, you know, world that you started writing?
Well, I've always read fantasy from when I was really young. I mean, it started with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I love The Adventures of Dorothy and Oz. I think there were 13 of those books.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I have all of them like on my bookshelf. There's so many.
I wish I still had mine. I don't think my mom has mine at home yet anymore. But yeah, so, and I liked Mary Stewart's Crystal Cave about Merlin. So,
yay!
Yeah, so that was one of my favorite books, and when I really started loving witch stories and stories of witches and wizards and King Arthur and the Round Table and Guinevere and all of those characters. Loved that. When I really became obsessed with vampires, not surprisingly, was Twilight. That kind of spurred me. I mean, that a little bit inspired me to write, you know, to publish too. I mean, just the fact that someone who wasn't maybe trained in this or hadn't written for her whole career could get this cool series published. Those were a little bit of my inspirations. I try not to read. I write romance too, so I try not to read or watch fantasy while I'm writing fantasy. I'll read romances while I'm writing my fantasy, and then if I'm writing romance, I read my fantasy. So they don't give. I try not to get influenced by other people's like ideas.
I feel like I do that too. I'll read the opposite genre of what I'm currently writing, because I think if I'm just too immersed in fantasy, I'm like, okay, if I'm writing fantasy, I need to watch a sci-fi show, or I need to watch something historical fiction, and I'll read a historical fiction book, or I'll read a graphic novel, just so I'm not blending too much of the same in my head, because I need a break.
Yeah, I think I would get confused with my story.
Yeah, it is. It's too much, too many wires crossing. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think I'm the same way. What is your writing process? Like, how do you get the work done?
I love writing every day, and when that happens, that makes me really happy because I just keep flowing. Like, if I'm writing every day, then I'm thinking about my characters, I'm thinking about the plot line, I'm tweaking. I think, oh, I need to change this. I'm tweaking it as if I'm driving in the car. I'll think about what I was just writing, and I'll think to myself, oh, I need to change this, or I need to change this, or, you know, what is the next thing that's going to happen? And that's sort of my happy place. I do have a daytime job, so I don't always get to do that. But yeah, and like I said, it's very character-based. So if I create a character, then create the world around them, and then I come up with what challenges they need to face based on the theme of the story and what I want to show in that character.
I think that's real common, or at least it's the approach I like. I was talking to my daughter recently about crafting a story, and it's like, she's like, I want to write a zombie. book. And I was like, well, who's your character? Because your story's got to start with your character. And I feel like that's how I'm able to get into a story quicker, is if I have the character, know what he wants, and then I can build the world around him, just like what you were saying.
Yeah. And I don't really plan mine out. I have like a general idea of where I want it to go. And I have more fun if I'm writing or if I'm coming up with the plot lines as I go. I usually have general plot points along the way, and I know where I want to end up, and then I can write in the middle. But if I think a lot of people say they do these great outlines, and it sounds really good. I want to be more organized.
I was like, I need to point to you, Angela.
That's me. That's me.
But then I tried it one time and I got bored. Like I didn't like it. Like I'm just like, at that point, I'm just doing what somebody tells me to do. So.
I'm a pantser too. So I do exactly what you do. I kind of let the characters talk and tell me what they're gonna do, what decision they want to make, and it leaves some happy surprises and gets me unstuck at times, because that can happen, and then I just have to take a break and wait for the characters to say what needs to happen next. And I do love it. It feels magical that way for me when I'm trying to discover the story with my characters.
I definitely dabble in the pantsing a little bit here and there.
I love how that sounds. I dabble.
Yeah. Because I see the full story. They just come to me, but I don't always know what the end's going to be. And that's always scary for me, because I'm like, well, I need to know how it's going to end. And I never can quite figure it out until I get there. And so that's always kind of a fun adventure for me. And I do allow the story to speak to me and betray what I think the story should do. So I change that around a little bit. But yeah, especially with some of the newer books that I've been writing, I'm like, I just need to take a risk and start writing, even though I don't know where I'm going, which is super scary for me because I'm not used to doing it that way. So it's kind of fun to hear how different people do it. So have you mostly traditionally published, or are you a self-publisher? Have you a little combination?
Yeah, I'm self-published. So my girlfriend that I talked about in the first series, she was an editor with Indie Books Gone Wild. And so she edited my first book, and Joe Michaels is also with Indie Books Gone Wild, as well as Jennifer Oberth, who does my proofreading. So now Joe Michaels is my editor, and Jennifer usually proofreads. I think I have a new proofreader this time, just depending on scheduling. But Joe also does my formatting, so she gets it into the right format. And then I have a couple of different cover people. I use Shower of Smith for the Realm Chronicles series, which I have one.
Yes, show us pics.
Yeah.
I'm totally out of the ones that don't have the banner on it, but that's that series.
So pretty.
It is pretty.
A local cover artist did my Kingdom Journal series. So.
Oh, nice.
But so yeah, I've gotten a great group of people, and they're really supportive, and they're really professional, and so I love that.
So what is next for you? Do you have other stories that are brewing? Are you writing a new story right now?
Right. So the Realm Chronicles has 3 books so far. I am in the editing stages for the 4th book, which I haven't revealed the title yet, so I won't tell you that. But, so the Realm Chronicles is to be a Fae Queen, to be a Fae Guardian, and then to be a Fae Legend.
Ooh.
The 4th book will come out on September 21st. So I'm really excited about that.
That's coming soon.
That is.
Is that the book that's got the elves and the werewolves in it?
Yes. We're going to have more fantastical paranormal creatures that our Fae are going to meet.
Oh gosh, exciting.
So fun.
And then so the Realm Chronicles will be a 5-book series. And how I do that is I'll publish the 4th book of the Realm Chronicles, and then I write a romance, and then I'll switch back and do fantasy. So the sides of my brain get a break when I'm doing the other one.
Are the romance books shorter? Are you able to just like kind of whip those out in between quickly?
They are word count shorter. It probably takes me the same amount of time to write them usually, depending on my process and how many great ideas I have.
How long does it take you to write a book? Like how many books are you publishing a year?
When I was publishing, when I first started, I was publishing 3 books a year. I've kind of slowed down. Since 2020, I think I've released just 1 book. 1 in 2020, 1 in 2020. Yeah. So 1 book a year since then, I think, 1 or 2. So it's been a little bit slower since then.
But it's still awesome that you're getting 1 out every year.
Yes, that's huge.
Gotten longer and longer as I've gone on too.
I feel that happens, at least like with my fantasy series, each one gets bigger. I guess your world just expands and there's more you can do and you introduce new characters and then you feel that one might need an arc. So yeah, they get bigger, but I don't think readers mind. They just want more anyway. So we're giving it to them. What advice would you give someone who wants to write a book?
What advice I would give? I think the best thing is just to start. Like, if I get in my head about doing something and get worried about if it's going to be good enough or if I should be doing it or shouldn't be doing it, if it brings you joy and it makes you happy, do it. Right. And science is my background. So I wasn't a natural writer until I started technical writing. And then from that, I gained more confidence about my fiction writing. So, but I took a lot of courses too. I did a lot of education on not being a literature major. I took a lot of courses on plot and characters and structure of a story and how you're supposed to lay out different types of books too in different genres. So that gave me a lot of confidence to know that, hopefully my books were going to be well received, and so far they have been. So I think the best thing to do is just to do it. If you want to do it, if you love it, and then if you think about going the next step, just decide how you want that to look. Because I've talked to people who are traditionally published versus indie published or somewhere in between, and it's really just what you're comfortable with. I am not patient enough.
Yeah.
I queried with my first book and I did like over 300 queries and I said, I just want to try this. But in the end, I wasn't patient enough to wait for it. And maybe at some point I will be in my life, but I'm having a lot of fun doing the indie route now.
I think that's important. You're having fun and people are loving your books and they're enjoying reading them. And I think that's the main thing, right? People are being able to get your books in their hands and read them. And you're having fans and people who support you and they're excited for the next book to come out. So where can people find your books or find out more information about you?
Right. So my website is triciacopeland.com. All my books are on Amazon, Kindle Unlimited, as well as the audiobooks for the YA fantasy.
And you also have a podcast, am I correct?
I do. My podcast is Finding the Magic Podcast. So I'm going to be hosting Angela. So I'm so excited about that. Get to learn more about your carefully crafted book.
Thank you.
Love the podcast name.
Yeah, me too. Because magic is so important in so many ways. And I love that that's your thing. And I can't wait to be on your show. Thank you so much for letting me be on your show and letting us have you on our show. I think it's so fun when you get to collab like that. And to meet other authors and writers. I think words are important. They make an impact. And stories take people somewhere. So thank you for being on our podcast. Everybody go on to Amazon and purchase some of Tricia's books. Enjoy the stories that she's telling, especially if you love a good witch, vampire, or fae story. Be sure to check her out, and even some of her romances. Be sure to pick those up if you enjoy a good, clean romance. She's your gal. So leave a like, leave a comment. Please join us and share out our episodes. We really love having you here at the Ink Mages, and we can't wait to see you next time.